Okay, what's up? Yesterday I covered Battle Cat, and when I was talking about him, specifically the Masterverse Battle Cat, it was brought up in the comments section when I asked what to do that the person that probably makes the most sense is King Grayskull. And you know what? That makes a lot of sense, and I have him. So let's talk about him. So, just to put this out there, in case I haven't said it a million times, I know, if you've been here for a while, you know, I'm a Revelation fan. I loved that show. That's what got me in. It's what started me on Masterverse. Technically, that's a little iffy. Look, there's a I'm collecting He-Man video now, and you should check that video out if you want to know my history, kind of like why I've always kind of been into this, but what kept me out of it, what finally made me buy the toys, what got me on board, what took my interest, and why I jumped in so deep and everything. There's an entire video discussing all that. If you're ever interested, I'd go check that out. But just to kind of run it down real quick, I knew that the show was coming out, and I knew that I'd always had an interest, and I bought 2 figures, and before I knew it, I was like, these figures are fantastic. I'm very interested in seeing the show. And I sat down and watched the show, and before I knew it, one episode led to 2, led to 3, led to 4, led to 5. In one night, I kicked through the entire thing, and it was only 5 episodes. And then they released the second part, and it was like right then. So they released the second part, and I watched that, so I'm like, doom, both parts. And now I'm waiting for the third part because it looks fantastic. And look, it took me by storm, okay? It was a fantastic show, which then correlated with a fantastic group of figures, and specifically, he was one of them. I knew about King Grayskull, and I knew that he was basically a bigger He-Man. Personally, that's all I ever saw with him. Like, I know people love the 2000X series. I get it. I watched season 1. I'll watch season 2 when I get around to it. But for me, I'm unimpressed by the ancestor that just looks like He-Man. It did nothing for me. Nothing. I was just like, that guy's cool. And that was it. And I read the comic books from DC, and I saw King Grayskull, and they tried to step away from the He-Man look a little bit. He looked a little less like He-Man, but still just looked like big He-Man. And He-Man is already big, so you get where I'm going with this. But like, it just didn't strike me. And it also kind of, personally for me, it feels a little like it hurts the mythology and the vastness of the imagination and how big and lived in this world is when you say King Grayskull has the sword, he's the most important guy, and his ancestors wield the sword. It makes it less that heroes come from who they are and more from who their daddies and grandfathers were. And that, to me, is less interesting because I love the idea that people are people. It's just the way that I am. I like the idea of seeing things like King Grayskull makes a lot more sense to me being this character than he does being an ancestor of Adam, who then basically passes his genes down the line, who then Adam gets those genes, and that's primarily the reason that Adam then becomes a hero. That honestly bugs me a little bit, and it always has, because when you close these stories in on themselves like that, you end up with the Luke Skywalker effect, where Anakin is really important because he's basically created by the Force. And then he has 2 kids, and they're really important because Anakin was important. And then the second everybody saw Rey, the first question was, oh, is that a Skywalker, and yada yada, and then they keep connecting back to that idea. When you pass down the lineage like that, it's not so much that they are a hero, but Daddy was a hero, so I'm a hero too, or Grandpa was a hero, or so I'm a hero too. And as it passes down that line, it loses some of its meaning. That, in my personal opinion, Adam is a hero because of who he is, not because his bloodline passed on the right for him to be so. You see what I'm getting at? And maybe you view it very differently, and you're more than welcome to view it very differently. We're not the same people, nor do I expect us to be the same people. And as I've argued before, one of the things that I love about this property is that it's malleable, and you pretty much get to pick where you think the best story lies, because these are avatars of the imagination. You'll hear me say that all the time if you're getting here and you're watching these videos. My MOTU playlist talks about it all the time. These are avatars of the imagination. The toys are different from the shows, are different from the comic books, are different from the mini comics, are different from the shows. Every time they put this back out, it's a retelling, and they don't necessarily just copy the mythology and move forward. They take elements that they liked and they tell a new mythology, and they do it all the time. You don't always, it's not like Batman. Do you get where I'm going? I know that I'm dragging this out a bit, but it's not like Batman. Batman always has the same story. Always. It doesn't matter. It's always the same. No matter how many times they reboot, reimagine, or push him forward, it's always the same story. But this is not. This indicates a different story than the 2013. And the comic books that DC did indicate a very different story. And if you read the original mini comics, it's an incredibly different story. And if you look at the toys in just what they were when they came out, the original toys, those toys are not the same concept that when they finally hit paper, that's what they were going to be, as when they finally hit a show in Filmation, is that what they were going to be. Every single telling is its own adaptation. This property is imagination. Vast and unfiltered, unhindered. Every time we tell the story, it's like a D&D campaign. And though we might be using the same characters and same layout, it's different every time we play. And that is one of the most grippingly amazing things in all of MOTU. And it plays into something. His design is fantastic. This is the best King Grayskull we have ever got. On film, in comics, in action figure form. Personally, for me, that's the best look, best attitude, best design, best characterization I have seen so far. And he didn't even have a lot of time, but he just seems infinitely interesting, and I would love to see a series that follows him. That's how much he struck my attention the exact second he came on camera. Let's open this guy up. So first, as usual, let's look him over real quick. That's his window, which the windows, by the way, if you're an in-box collector, you don't have to worry about nothing when it comes to these figures. They're fantastic. The window is as good as it can possibly be. This cobblestone wall that's back there, him in general, all his weapons, everything's laid out. They always have some kind of action pose going on. It's fantastic. But the real king, or the real attention-grabbing masterpiece, is always this fantastic artwork, and he's no exception. That is awesome. I'm not 100% sure if he's pulling the swords apart, or if he's in the grips of putting it together to create what will become the Sword of Power, but it's really, really cool. It might very well tell us right there, because here's his dialogue box, or his bio, as it were. I guess the best way to tell. And then in terms of this, I'm just curious real quick. All but one. I do not have Fish Man. Do not have Merman. I can't wait for the new Merman, but this Merman right here, I was not interested, so he went to the bottom of my must-have list. I'm going to get him at some point because I want to complete Masterverse for what it's worth, but I'm in no rush. And then the side art right here, also absolutely fantastic. And the side art for me is very important because of my display up here. I do this with the side arts. So I line a couple of figures up and my side arts all pop out and create that effect up there. And there's an owl right now because that just happens to be where he is right now. He's not important. Anyways, let's open the figure. Okay, so here he is outside of the packaging. And of course, I've got the cat here just to kind of give the idea because yeah, he does. This will actually look really cool if he's positioned with the other battle cat that I have. That's pretty cool. I would definitely really like him to have his lion, and who knows, maybe I'll find some sort of replacement or something like that when it gets going. I like that they include this head right here. This is actually a really good head. It's really solid, and it kind of gives me that king impression, a guy who's thoughtful and concerned about his people and things like that, and he's thinking. It looks like a calm, collected kind of head sculpt that they give us. And then they give us the barbarian, you have pushed me, you threaten my people with slavery and death, that kind of thing. You get the idea. It's very much he needs those two different opposing ideas. And also you can really see that intricate work right there. I really like this. I love his hair and how well that's sculpted. This is fantastic. It's such a good sculpt. It's such a good face sculpt. I like this shield because it plays on the idea of He-Man in general, because He-Man has a shield that's kind of like this but different. And if they're passed down the lineage of Castle Grayskull, okay, so Castle Grayskull we know is basically created kind of to honor him in the storyline that we were given in Revelations. And this one, he shows up. Castle Grayskull was made. It used to be white, you know what I'm talking about, and then it was kind of chipped away over the years and degraded to what it was. But when it was created to honor him. And it may have even been his actual castle for a time, because we see that in the comic books as well, where it's the actual castle where he is. And it would be cool if this was the kind of shield emblem that he carried all those years ago, and over time, over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, that emblem altered to be the shield that we see with He-Man, and that would be a cool lineage idea. It would really tie in well to the lineage. I really like this too. This harness and this cape. I love the fluff here on the cape. This cape is fantastic. I like that there's a separation right here, just enough to kind of put all this in so that you actually have the hair going down, so the ponytail. There's a wire in the cape, which is solid because it will allow you to actually pose the cape and kind of move it around and things like that if you actually want to mess with it, which is really solid because you can move it way out like this and things like that. The only thing I'll say is that you'll have to kind of tuck it up and hold it in. You gotta mess with it to get it exactly where you want it, and once you have it, you might not want to mess with it too much after that. Or it might not even be the worst idea in the world to get a thicker cord, because this is a really weak wire, in all honesty. If I've got to call something out, it wouldn't be a bad idea to probably take your scissors and cut just the littlest tab right there and put in a second wire that runs the length of the cape, or just a thicker wire in general, and that would really boost all this up. The cape, oh my, he fell over. These two tabs I got to take out of the cape because they're still in there. That's how he was held in. I really don't like that. I don't like when they hold the cape in with tabs. If you're going to tape it or something like that, that's fine. I really don't like the tabs thing, but that's okay. I really like that they went out of their way to make all these arrows here coming off the cape. It's just really, really cool. His cape makes 30% of his look. It's so fantastic. And then the rest of it really comes down to him just looking great. I mean, he looks absolutely great. And I love the two swords here too because they're also kind of a callback to the original storyline. In the original mini-comics all those years ago, we were told that there were two swords. And when the two swords were combined, they would become the big power sword, the Sword of He or whatever. And that was the key to opening Castle Grayskull. And then later on down the years throughout the lineage where they've added ideas, you find out that that sword's only the beginning. The truth of the matter is that these two swords combined into one sword, which ends up becoming a key, which can unlock the Orb of Power, which is literally an orb created that holds all of the power of... From what I understand, because I just read it in the comic books, the entire multiverse, the universe and the multiverse was created from the power of the Orb of Power. And if you can unlock it, you become the master of the multiverse, and you basically have control of all that power. You can shape the cosmos however you see fit. And so it's interesting and it's really cool to think about things like that. And then we also hear about things like you talk about the Forge under Castle Grayskull, which is supposedly the fires of creation, and that's supposedly how he made the swords in the first place. It's really cool because this guy ties well into the lineage ideas while you can basically create your own ideals because he's not set in stone like the other King Grayskull that we know. Like I've mentioned a lot of different ideas, but those ideas come from the King Grayskull that we know, not the new King Grayskull, which I feel is a better King Grayskull look-wise than the other one was at all. This guy is really cool. He moves well. He looks great. His muscles are more realistic. That's another thing, too, that I'm really appreciating about Masterverse is the scale of the figures makes me like them because they look right to me. They look buff, but they look real. That looks like something you could obtain if you were to break your ass and do the workout that you need to do to reach it. That's an obtainable, actual, badass dude right there. You could be that guy. And that also picks the mythology up in a way for me because it helps me to kind of relate to the idea, not just that these are avatars of imagination, but we want to aspire to be our heroes, and you could work your ass off. This is obtainable. That's another part of Masterverse that I like a whole lot. But yeah, that might be all I really have to point out with him. I'm not going to move him all over the place or anything right now. But yeah, see, like you could put his cape way out here. Let me do that real quick. I'll scoot his cape up so that we'll bring that chest mark down. I'll bring this all the way up as high as it'll go. And I'll bring this part up and kind of tuck it under here. Like I said, I got to lift it up. It's not perfect. There. See how it's all spread out like that? That's cool. That's a thing that you can do with this because he has the cape and he has the ability to do that. Like I said, I wish this was a better wire. In all honesty, I kind of wish the cape was a little higher too. A slight modification, which even I think I could actually do, would work wonders for this. But all in all, this is fantastic. This figure is one of the best in Masterverse. Okay, so one last thing before we move on. There is a problem that I would like to fix, and it's behind the cape. It has a tag. I don't like that. I'm sure there's some legit reason for there to be a tag. I'm going to cut that tag off because it completely kills the look and feel when I have him standing there and he looks so cool, and then there's that tag and it kind of breaks the immersion. Not into the tag, not sure why the tag is there, the tag has to go. But that was King Grayskull and all of my thoughts on him so far, and I think, personally, he's a magnificent figure. In terms of the Masterverse that I've opened up so far, he's easily in my top 5. I don't 100% know where I would lay my top 5 right now, but I know he's in it. And more than likely, the Barbarian Skeletor also sits in it because, well, The Barbarian Skeletor, when you revert him to a classic look, is easily one of the best figures we have ever seen in He-Man figures ever. Like, all Masters of the Universe. And I'm including classics in that. That might very well be the best Skeletor that has been released, especially in this scale. But that's enough. That was King Grayskull. That's every thought that I had on him so far. I'm gonna get out of here.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.